Hello, everyone. Welcome to the roundup here on Blood Bowl Live. Here to go through all of the all of the last week's games in the ADBBL Season 8. Deep into playoffs now. We've got some semi-finals, we've got some quarterfinals, lots of games to. I say lots of games, 5 games to go through. Not many games at the business end of the season now. Just 5 games to go through. Joining me as always, Mr. Scott Bryant. Scott, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Christopher. How are you this evening?
Yes, not too bad. I went for a run. Earlier.
That's your own fault, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know why. But hey, the dogs enjoyed it. Joining us again as always, Mr. Tom Howell. Tom, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Let's dive straight in then. 5 games to fly through this evening. And we start with the Dead Star Belgrave versus Wolverhampton Shamblers, battle of the 2 undead teams here, and a 1-0 victory for Dead Star Belgrave in what was a very close game. I popped into the shop briefly, and it was just a matter of the odd dice roll here or there that separated it, which seems to be the case for all of the knockout games, which shows how close it is. Wolverhampton Shamblers stopped Dead Star from doing anything on their drive, kept it 0-0 at halftime, and Dead Star managed to turn the tide in the second half, getting a touchdown at the very end in order to get the 1-0 win. And there was just a matter of 1 or 2 things that could have gone differently, and this could have gone to extra time or could have been the other way, but a very close game for both coaches. Scott, coming to you first then. Dave is in his 3rd season with this shambling team. Jane's in her 3rd season with this Necro team. Dave's taken this team to many tournaments over the last year or so. Very experienced in it, but 2 coaches who have gotten very used to these teams and therefore a very close game.
It was, Chris. And I think Dave's comments in Discord after this were very good, very positive reflection of our community in terms of him, especially Dave, seeing Jane's progress as a coach. Dave has obviously been played Jane, these 2 teams both in previous leagues as well within ADBBL. So this match was a real reflection, A, of how Jane has developed as a coach, how she's really developed this team, B, how Dave is still a very, very good coach. And I think it's also, just to call it out here, and this is a theme I expect us to mention several times through the podcast this evening. Sorry, podcast stream. I can't remember what we're doing at the moment. But how close a lot of all of the knockout matches have been at whatever level they've been at. It's been down to 1 or 2 rolls of the dice. It's been down to, the last play, the last turn of the last drive. And I think, shout out to Jane as well, because not only is she playing Dave, very, very skillful coach, very skillful and skilled up team, having Ivan the Animal Death Shroud in your back pocket is not a bad thing to go into a match with as well either. So as expected, very close. Maybe Ivan was that difference. Maybe Nuffle was smiling upon Dave one more time indeed. Yes, a really close game, really good, entertaining game from what you said. Both coaches very complimentary, and it'll be really interesting to see if either of these teams do come back for a 4th crack at the title.
Tom, it was an interesting matchup, this one. You had Dave, who narrowly missed out on top 4. Jane, who in her last game crept into 8th place. So you've got 2 people at kind of almost opposite ends of that kind of bracket. And yet it's been a very close game. As our resident Necro coach here, do you how do you approach this from kind of Necromantic Horror's point of view in this game? Shambling are kind of deceptively quick with all the ghoul runners they have, so there's kind of a deceptive agility in that team. So kind of how do you approach this one?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, considering equally that she unfortunately lost one of her werewolves, Luna, in turn 4, so relatively early on. But I think we should never kind of write Jane off now. She's becoming a bit of a pro with this team. She knows how to play it. She plays it very well. even though, as you can see, that unfortunately all the injuries went against her. With in particular with a lot of key players. So literally by turn 14, all her real scoring chances had gone. Considering that Werewolf was out on turn 4, a Ghoul Runner was out on turn 11, and the other Ghoul Runner was out on turn 14. But she definitely held her own on this one by the looks of things. I would not be surprised if we saw this team again in another season.
Do you think next season, Tom, or maybe a break and then a couple more seasons down the line? I know it's not for you to answer, but what would you do if you were in that position with this team?
I don't know. It's kind of a strange one because she has built quite a good team here. She hasn't randomized the skills, so she's got 2 guard flesh golems, 1 with block as well. She's got a fantastic werewolf with wrestle, tackle, jump up, and dodge. That is a real threat there. At 205k, it's pretty pricey though. She's also got a block, basically a blodge sidestep Ghoul Runner in there. So there are some really interesting, nice characters for a next season sort of thing. And you could potentially get rid of the rest and start afresh with them. So there is, it's going to be difficult for her to make a decision. I don't know what else she's got her eye on.
I know that she's got some Dark Elves that I think after a lot of people testing Dark Elves this season, I think we could see them. Dave's in the chat just saying, don't forget that Jane had the better armored team. Only 2 armor 8 pieces in her team compared to the 5 armor 8 pieces for the Shambling Undead. Which is a very good point. So Dave's done well to kind of, in the kind of physical sense of this game, done well to keep more players in play, and maybe that's what has won it in the end. I know that Jane's stand firm zombie kind of really, really kind of caused issues because it gives you 3 stand firm pieces with the 2 flesh golems, and give you a really good defensive line, which is difficult to break. Well done, Dave. Great result into the semi-finals then for the Super Cup. Jane, a hard-fought game against a tough opponent, but she's had a great season getting into that second bracket in that last game and had some good results along the way. So well done both, and we'll see how far the Shambling Undead team can go. We'll move on to the next game, which is our first of 2 semi-finals in the top playoff bracket here, and a 2-1 victory for the Transmogarian Terrors. John's at least third shot at title 3. I say third final, but I actually wonder whether he's reached other finals, but and I'm trying to think of that he hasn't won, or whether he is unbeaten in finals. He can tell us in the chat. But a 2-1 win here for the Vampire team over the Nurgle side. Yeah, a game you can watch most of this game on the stream. We had a slight break in play halfway through, but you can definitely see both of John's touchdowns if you want to see how they came about. Tom, we've said for a while that John looks like the coach to beat here, and Elliot's put up a very good fight in this game. But John is showing and continues to show why he's the coach to beat.
Yes, in fact, you and I were actually playing a friendly match between Elven Union and Chaos Dwarf, and then realised this game was being played and turned on the stream only to hear some blood-curdling yell of anguish from Elliot by the sounds of things. So it really did sound like quite an intense game, especially with the fact that it was got all the way to the first half. First half it was 1-1 coming into the second half, so everything to play for. But as we've said many times before, this Vampire team is formidable. The skills it's got on it is incredible. You don't really need to put any more skills on anyone at all in this on any of those vampires, or else they'll just be too good. You might even want to focus on putting some blocks on the thralls. That's all you can really do to make it any better.
Yeah, it's whether you give some, what you do to your team value, isn't it? At this point, do you sit on those skills, not worry about skills on the thralls? And I mean, on the vampires, do you now save up for stat increases? Kind of how do you manage that team now? Scott, Elliot kind of fought to the end here. I think near the end of the game, there was one miscalculation of how far his players could get, leaving him unable to score at the end. In fact, looking in the chat, Elliot's just said to us, I scored from a failed rush with reroll in the first half. Ball carrier failed a rush with a reroll for John to get the ball. He failed a dodge with a reroll to stall. I failed a rush to blitz the ball carrier with a reroll, then made a mistake and didn't move the ball carrier enough squares. But it wasn't that likely to end 2-2. 3 rushes away, but he couldn't. He could have got vampires back. Elliot's put up a fight here. It's been the Elliot we know, Scott. Sort of one error at the end, and sounds like lots of failed rolls on either side, and this could have gone differently.
Yeah, before we talk about Elliot, Tom, you'd put Mighty Blow on at least a couple, maybe. That'd be nice. That'd be really extra juicy and spicy. Just to put it out there. In terms of the numpties, these Nurgle numpties, they've really done a treat, especially as they started the game only on 11 players. Elliot's really done well. Yes, he lost his first match of the season, but since then he's been undefeated. He's had really a close couple of games against the fellow stablemates in Jack and Tom in terms of his draws, but he's really developed them. He's really turned on with it, and he's really, I think, changed a lot of the perception of Nurgle. A lot of people look at Nurgle and think they're really quite, they're slow, not quite dwarf-esque, but they're definitely not in the edge bracket. But if you look at how Elliot's playing these teams, he can very quickly do a 1 and 2 turn scores. So he's using them really, maximizing their movement, maximizing their range. Okay, the miscalculation withstanding on this weekend, but I did think that towards the end, especially in the last drives, I appreciate Elliot got the double skulls roll. But even at that point, when the ball was going everywhere and it could have bounced, and depending where it landed, it could have been very close again. It could have gone to a 2-2 draw. It might on another day have gone to a 3-1 for Elliot. This is how close the matches are. My only negative thing I can say really about this match generally, I think the coaches, especially Elliot, he'd set an exceptionally high standard the previous match in terms of dress code and security personnel. I was expecting a minimum of him to be carried in, on some sort of throne. And John's just too cool for school, isn't he, really? So,
I think he was saving that for the final, being carried in. So maybe the third place playoff, we'll see something. It is interesting when you look at Elliot's Nurgle team, because we've always got used to, particularly in this league, watching the mutations flow with Nurgle. Most of the teams we've had have focused more on mutations than other things. And Elliot's gone kind of a lot more traditional here. It's a lot of block everywhere, guards, tackle, mighty blow. There's only one additional mutation that he's given to one bloater, which is claws. Otherwise, it's a very kind of traditional set of skills. So it's an interesting, different approach, and it's clearly worked for him this season. And it's been a slow build. He hasn't randomized anything. He's always randomized one stand firm by the looks of it, and that's it. So, a slow build here. I know that he won't be redrafting it, but a good team to end the season with.
He's not redrafting because actually they're quite low value, even with those skills on. That pesticle with block is only 95k. I think quite a few people quite like that in their starting team.
Elliot's in the chat saying no redraft next season. Probably a new team that are tier 2. Would like to win the league with a tier 2 team now. Okay, so he's set himself the challenge, and no doubt he can do it. Well done to both coaches. Another hard fought game. Well done to John for getting through to another final, where we know who he will be facing. The other semi-final was played at the same time, and the Orphic Gladiators came away with a 1-0 victory over the Bleeding Clowns. Chaos Renegades taking the win against the Khorne team here in another very close game. Orphic Gladiators getting the turning the play round in the first half to get the touchdown against the Drive. And we were, myself and Tom were sort of keeping an eye on this one as well. And you could tell, even sort of not watching it, you could tell in those last few turns that both coaches were doing everything they could to protect ball carriers, make things difficult, get dice rolling. And in the end, this one came down to a failed 2-up dodge to get the equalizer on the very last turn of the game. Both coaches, really pushing hard in this one, and a very good result for the Chaos Renegade team. Scott, Luke's done exceptionally well with this team. Chaos Renegades are an interesting one. Those big guys, if you lose them, can sort of be very key to the team if they go. He's created a team of incredible positionals out of all of the random assortment of linemen that you get in this team, and he's using them really, really well.
I agree. Just as a first call out, again, a fantastic match between both coaches. Scott was one dice roll away from getting that draw in extra time. But yeah, Luke has really come on. This is, again, only his second season. He's taken a team who could be very hit and miss. His big guys, particularly the Roger, have been absolutely on fire. He's missed one game, but having a Roger with block, having an Ogre with guard. And on this match as well, they both start doing exactly what you want to do, giving you casualties. Thank you very much. There's 2 out of my 3 mighty blow pieces, earning their pay for this particular game. That, and we talked about it last week. He has, selected these skills which really maximize. Having a Renegade, Skaven, movement 7, edge 3, horns block. So basically, you've got a strength 4 blitz piece, which is going to get your armor on an 8, and his tackle, you can't exactly dodge away. So between that and that Renegade Goblin is looking. He's randomized those skills, but you couldn't really have randomized better mutations for a Goblin. 2 heads, extra arms, that's filthy. I know we love it. That's really a quality one. Good old Icarus too. Or the second. So yeah, his positionals have done well. He's got it. He's played very, very well. He's beaten some great coaches. I think after his one defeat this season, he's really maintained that high standard as well. So yeah, kudos to Mr. B.
Tom, it kind of sums up nicely. Luke is doing the very basics of Blood Bowl very well, in that he is, while you want to roll as few dice as possible yourself, you need to make your opponent roll as many dice as possible to make them sort of have the chance of failing. Scott's in the chat saying, very well played by Luke. Losing on a 1 from a 2-up is the worst, but take nothing away from him. He made me have to roll that dice. Great game. I mean, it's a basic thing, isn't it? Make your opponent roll as many dice as possible. Luke's done it well, and it's got him to the final.
Absolutely, and that team is going to be a force to reckon with, even against these vampires. Because I'm just looking down there. You've got on the strength, you're not really that beaten by those strength 4 vampires with all those big guys. You've also got a dauntless human there who could be a bit sneaky coming in. You've also got another renegade human with claws and one with wrestle. So these are some really interesting players. So the final is definitely going to be one to watch with these lineups.
You've got possibly a golf in team value as well, depending on what John decides to do. So he could be adding 1 or 2 key star players to this team before that game. A word on the Clowns then before we say goodbye to them this season. They'll have a 3rd place playoff to play. A kind of an interesting selection of skills on a lot of their players. Some very highly skilled players here. Lots of mutations coming in on the linemen. It's the season of Khorne. It's season 8, and it's the furthest reaching Khorne team of the season. It's been up and down for this team, but they've put the pressure on. They've not won. They've not lost by big margins in any game. do we think sort of? We know we won't see this team again, but would you redraft this team if it were yours? Looking at some of those skills.
I'm just always jealous of how many skills people actually get in a season. It's just phenomenal how they Scott always manages to do this. He's definitely got kind of the meta down to a fine art with any team. It is a shame we're not going to see this one again, but maybe it's a bit of relief for others coming into the league.
A very attractive team as well. If you look at them, with each one that gets a casualty gets a balloon for said casualty, and seeing the amount of balloons that team carries across the pitch is somewhat terrifying. So well done to Scott for a very strong season. The clown's balloons have burst, as he's saying himself. It is worth remembering that Scott is on an impressive run of form of getting to the final, and then the season after that getting knocked out in the semi-finals. Exactly the same thing has happened again. So an impressive run of form if you look at his kind of pattern of results there. But well done to him for a good season, and good luck to Luke in the next round as well. A tough game coming up, but absolutely deserves his place there. We will go on to then our penultimate game, which was a game that I was calling Who's Tom Hovell Got to Play Next? And it was a matchup between the T-Pele Chargers versus the Buffalo Biggins. Another close game, a 1-0 victory for the Buffalo Biggins here. Many halflings off the pitch. I was in store near the end of this game, and there were 2 trees and 2 halflings left on the pitch come turn 16. But it was very close in those last few turns were quite close in this one. You had the Buffalo Biggins were kind of had the ball, but it was in their own half. There were halflings everywhere. They failed a dodge, a 2 into a 1, which opened something up for the halflings, who then failed their dice roll as well. So it was kind of one failure on one side being let go by a failure on another. And then the halflings started to come off the pitch with many rolls of a 7 on armor breaks, leaving there just no players left for Justin to try and grab the win at the end. But a hard fought result here. Scott, the Buffalo Biggins had some tough results in the group stage. Got a good win here against the Halflings, who have been a tough, stunty team to beat and maybe unlucky to drop down into this tier. So this is a good result for them and something to bounce off to take into the semi-final.
I think it's a very good result for Harrison. When you look at it at the start, he only had the 11 players. And then, of course, he gets a casualty from the tree straight away in turns 3. So then to turn it round and just do what Orcs do really good, they absolutely smash halflings off the pitch. Really good effort by him. It will, especially against Justin, when we know Justin can do a 1-turn touchdown on a sixpence, as it were. That's an old coin for you youngsters out there. So really good game. Harrison
used to use to pay for things rather than just tapping as well, just for the youngsters out there.
I thought you were a youngster, Tom, but we'll move on.
Come on, guys.
So,
Jesus Christ, guys.
Yeah, we're down with the kids. A good win for Harrison. Hopefully he'll have he's got everything to play for. This is his swan song for at least this season. Obviously, he's off travelling to exotic parts, and I don't mean South Wales for that, but he's going to be travelling and spreading the gospel of Blood Bowl coaches everywhere. So good luck to him on that. And you never know, Mr. Tom Hovell will be standing in his path.
Tom, you must have been keeping an eye on this one. Did you have a preferred opponent here? Because Harrison's got a very good looking Orc team here. Some very skilled up players there that look like they're going to cause some trouble. But those halflings, those trees, the amount of casualties they've got in games as well. Were you kind of hoping one way or another? Were you prepared for whatever the result of this one?
I had done homework on both players. I've played both of them. I've played Harrison more than Justin, and I've played Harrison's Orcs numerous times. as you say, he's rolled a number of sevens in this game. Hopefully, he'll continue that rolling sevens against me. With my armor just slightly higher, only just. But
Just going to point out the mighty blow on 2 players. So
yeah,
a
I did
7 for your
notice that.
catcher
Well,
won't
yeah.
be great.
I looked. I was quite pleased that I noticed there was an injury, and then it was like, oh, it's one of the least skilled up blitzers actually has gone out. I wouldn't have minded AJ going out, to be honest. And also Dion, the big and blocker, is now back as well, which is a bit of a daunting kind of prospect. It's going to be a tough game. It really is going to be a tough game. It was going to be a tough game regardless of the outcome of this game. But, you know, humans versus orcs, a story as old as time.
A word on Justin's Halflings then. A very impressive team that he's built here. It was their second season, retired now, I believe, and a new team to come in the future season. The trees are very impressive. He's got some really impressively built players there. A tree with a touchdown, something that we're not going to forget for a while from last season as well. So well done to Justin for a very, very impressively built team and a very strong season. We're very keen to see what he brings to the next one. And good luck, Harrison, in your semi-final against Mr. Hovel. We'll see how that game goes in the next week or so. On to our last game then, which was a game that was adminned. The reason it was adminned is that we allowed it to be played a little bit sooner than it actually being available on Tour Play. Because Jack needed to get the game in because he's got a little bit of a break coming up, so we wanted to make sure that we didn't delay it at all. A 3-2 win for the Argartha Mewers, a very interesting game, a very close game on paper, a game that I personally absolutely love because it was there were a couple of one-turn touchdowns coming from the Orcs side. Which I love a one-turn touchdown. So a impressive game here. Lots of SPP coming on both sides. Touchdowns are plenty. Possibly, Scott, a difficult one to call going into this game. Both coaches with teams that they played last season as well. So we've got redrafts happening on either side. Both coaches who struggled a little bit in the group stage, but then put on a great show.
I think both coaches, as we discussed last week, had a bit of a difference in coming into this match. Simon had a couple of really good wins coming into this a bit more formed. Jack, really, really good team, solid, difficult to beat, look phenomenal on the pitch still. But Jack's team, Jack hadn't played since really the end of the league. So, possibly going in a bit cold. And in terms of this, he did what you need to do. He got it. He got the touchdowns. He scored it. He did it well. He put himself into that next round, that's what you've got to do in these matches. Just get yourself through to the next round, no matter what. So kudos to him. He's building a nice team. It's season 3 or season 2 with season 2, isn't it, with the Mewers? Jack can correct me, or one of the guys.
2, I believe it's 2.
Yeah, one of the guys in there. So really, really good, solid game from Norse, as we know they can do. And but kudos to Simon. He's introduced maybe a new megastar of the future and the fans' favorite Moonface. Especially with those one-turn touchdowns that you love so much, Christopher.
I do love a one-turner. I can't turn it away. Looking in the chat, Jack's in the chat saying those 2 one-turn touchdowns really messed me up. Yetianov knocked out for a lot of the game. Also KO'd his big guy, but he came back and got the second touchdown. Tom, it is tough when you're facing a one-turner, and if you face a one-turner and it works both times after you score, you can feel a little bit helpless. So Jack's done well to kind of keep his head in the game and get that third and get the win in full time.
Yeah, absolutely. The pressure is obviously on with everyone in these games, and it's nice to see people just trying it. I think that this year we've seen more one-turn touchdowns by stunties being lobbed over the opposition to score more than other seasons. So it's clearly starting to become a bit of a habit in our divisions and teams.
It's great to see a good hard fought game here. A word on Simon's team. Then I think this is the last we're seeing of the Wildermere Wasps for now. I believe we've got some possibly some Wood Elves on the way next season. He's built a really interesting team here, stuck with players like the Train Troll, who was movement stat busted early on, Moonface passing stat busted. Hasn't removed or replaced any of these players, and yeah, Moonface has become a little bit of a cult hero, I think. So yeah, a really impressively built team. I think we said last week, if I had all of those skills on a Lizardman team, I would be absolutely over the moon. It's a really impressive set of skills there. So well done to him. And good luck to Jack in the final. He goes through to the final of the third playoffs, where he will face either Harrison or Mr. Hovel, depending on how that game goes. So well done to him, and good luck in that game. That's our 5 games. So let's have a little look at the boards then. The fourth playoff, I think both of these games are possibly happening this coming week. So we should have some more information to tell you about that come next week. See which pairs make it to the final and which pair makes it through to the third place playoff. We now know that the Agartha Mewers are into the final of the third playoff, with the Clueless Crusaders and the Buffalo Biggins battling it out for that other place to see who they will face. In the second playoff, we have got Rats versus Norse and Chaos and Khorne versus Shambling Undead in 2 very interesting looking games there. A Rat team on very, very strong form at the moment up against some Norse. And coach-wise, I believe it's a repeat of the first ever final we had as well in James versus Dave for that place in the final. So good luck to all of those coaches. And in the top playoff, then we have our 2 finalists, the Orphic Gladiators versus the Transfalgarian Terrors. Will battle it out. That game is booked in already, hopefully, for the 22nd of February. And we will look to bring you that live, of course. And the Bleeding Clowns versus the Numpties will battle it out for third place. So we'll look forward to that game as well. That's it. Just 5 games this week, and that is all of them. So a really good run. Not many games left to play this season. And each game, like I said in the Discord, is looking really, really close. So well done to everyone for powering through. It'll be really interesting to see what our finals look like. Thank you, Mr. Brian. Thank you, Mr. Hovel. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in the chat and for listening afterwards and watching afterwards. And whatever way you're watching, thank you for joining us. We will bring you more action next week. We will see you then.